All right, so here's part 2 of the website walkthrough. So we're just going to be going over diagrams and the virtual model. So the first diagram is going to be the site context diagram. So this looks a lot like the site plan, but it's got some different overlays over it. So first, these red lines are going to be what is the vehicular traffic. So obviously you'll have the main traffic flow up and down Summit and then from east to west on Pacific. Then again, Pacific, you'll have that main entrance coming into the new parking area. So that's where all of that will happen. And again, you'll still have this drop off here in the front of the church. The blue lines are the new emphasized axis that I've created. By creating this axis pointing towards the corner, it really brings people in from all sides. And then it directs them either into the main area, the main congregation space, or it directs them into the front of the church, depending on what's happening. But again, really just creating this journey for people. That way they can slowly become members and feel like they're going on a journey versus being rushed into it. I think it'll be a lot more successful that way, and you'll have a lot more retention and a lot more actual community outreach. As for the yellow is just the existing building, just simplified down for the diagram purposes. And then this new block right here is actually where I've shifted the entrance. So the entrance used to be over here. I've actually moved it down. That way it aligns better with the new addition. So that's a pretty simple move, pretty simple task. And that also allowed for some more added parking over here in the back. A couple more diagrams. So this here is the public-private diagram. So you can kind of see on this scale as it gets darker. So this light blue is the most public spaces. Then you have the semi-public space, so a little more privacy here. And then obviously the bathrooms are going to be the most private area of this building. The contemplation space is kind of a semi-private, depending on how many people are there and whether or not we're using that for an event space. The material diagram, so basically some possible ideas. These are all off of rendering software. So just kind of some wood, basic wood. Actually, I believe the one I've used that we'll see in the model is a few shades darker than this. Just kind of a basic roof material. I liked the idea of these cinder blocks for the exterior walls because it's kind of a mesh between the materials of the church right now, which are the brick and the concrete stucco kind of material. So I think that's an interesting mesh of the two to associate it with the church, but not be identical to the church. For the interior walls, probably something fairly clean, like a basic plaster like this. And then finally, we have the structure diagram, so kind of showing how the building will physically work. So there's two main parts. So for the area over here, these darker walls that I've shaded in are going to be the bearing walls. So that's where all the loads are going to happen, and that's what's going to keep the building standing up. All of the lighter walls will not be bearing. And then as for this part, the main structure, this darker part are actually the trusses. That's what's going to hold up your roof and take most of the load in those buildings. And then finally, the lightest gray are just the glass walls. So obviously those wouldn't be bearing walls. Those are just glass walls. All right, and then finally, we're going to take a look at the virtual model. So these are just some images that I've pulled up from the virtual model. So here's kind of an overview. So this would be the corner of the building, working into the side. You can kind of see how I overlaid some grass here to kind of give it that look. Again, you have this walkway. It's almost two separate buildings within one building. This is really more about the journey, and this is more about the functional facility and having enough space. It's almost a second area that's pretty much large enough that you could have more events and stuff in there. Some of the overflow from like the multicultural festival could definitely be housed in this building because there's definitely enough space for it. Here's kind of a perspective view on what it would actually look like to walk under it if you were coming from the church. This would be the inside view of the building. There would obviously be some more lights here, but then you'd get into this is what it would look like going towards the church, and just some more views of the building. But yeah, so overall, that's kind of the whole idea of the design. But yeah, if you have any questions, you can feel free to email Sarah and get those to me, or email me at rwarren@drury.edu. I hope this was helpful and helps you understand my design a little bit better, and I'm looking forward to your feedback. Thanks.